At the end of All Tomorrows, the alien author confesses that every species and being that was mentioned in the preceding story were all, in fact, now extinct, having died out or migrated to another plane of existence over 1 billion years ago. This means that the alien author's account of the events is frankly pretty unreliable. All the author has to go by are billion-year-old artifacts and ruins, and he readily admits that the story is only just starting to come together, meaning that much of what is in the book is probably completely wrong. Of course, the level of technology possessed by the author's species would be unimaginable by us, and so that tech would have been put to use in unravelling the mystery of the bygone star people and all of their Q-created descendants. But, as I said before, the author has only just started piecing the story together, so that means whatever technology is being used is obviously struggling to give them the full picture. So with this in mind, I think it's safe to say that much of what the author has stated in his account of the events could be completely wrong. I mean, how accurately can you tell a story that happened 1 billion years ago? Another point I want to make is that early on in the story we're told that upon finding the Panderavis, a creature that evolved from the Therizinosaurus of Earth, on an alien planet where it shouldn't have existed at all, the star people began to realise that something else was lurking out there in the galaxy, something that was highly intelligent and capable of taking living species from one planet and transporting them to others. Among some of the star people, this would resurrect religion, with many of them coming to believe it was a god or gods or godlike beings that were responsible for doing this. On this world, the world where the Panderavis was found, the star people would likely have found pyramids which the Q were fond of leaving on the worlds they visited, and from there they have deciphered who these powerful beings were. If this made the star people, or a large proportion of them, begin to hold religious beliefs again, then it stands to reason that the star people had, in fact, begun to worship the Q. Now, this too could of course be incorrect, as everything in the book could be. Maybe that's not what happened at all and the alien author is wrong again. But for the sake of argument, we'll say that his theory about the star people becoming religious again after finding the Panderavis is correct. After this discovery, the star people at some point came into contact with the Q for the first time. In the official account of the story, we're led to believe that it was a 1,000-year-long Q invasion of the star people worlds, in which they genetically changed them against their will and basically ruined humanity as it had come to be. But what if that interpretation of events is wrong? This is, after all, only what the alien author thinks happened. What if there is much more to the story? You see, I've been thinking about the fact that the star people had become religious and had probably started worshipping the Q. Maybe, just maybe, the Q turning up on the star people's doorstep wasn't a result of their travelling the galaxy in an evil, never-ending mission to remake the universe. Maybe the Q appeared because the star people had begun sending out communications into space in order to try and contact them purposefully, to try and get their attention. The Q were invited to the star people's homeworlds because the star people worshipped them. This could in fact be a very complicated story indeed, not just a simple systematic invasion, but a story of gods coming down to terrestrial worlds and meeting humanity. So I'm thinking that if this is the case, it could explain a few things. We know, if the author is correct on this point, that the Q were able to modify living things into anything they wanted them to be. The star people would have learned this from their exploration of the pyramids. So what if this had become a part of the basis of the new Q-centered religion? What if the star people, or those who had become religious fanatics who worship the Q, had invited the Q to their worlds because they wanted to be changed by them. They wanted to be modified into something else that the Q decided they should be. There would be no greater honour than to be changed by the gods themselves, and this is what the religious star people had desired most. So the Q were now visiting the worlds of the star people and were being deified and worshipped. Did the Q want this? Well, yes and no. Some of them would have just wanted to leave the star people worlds alone and let them grow out of these beliefs, whereas others, as was the case with the terrestrials who would come about much later in the story, grew corrupt and would take advantage of their worshippers. These Q individuals who had weaved offshoot religions around themselves, much like some of the terrestrials would later on, would be the ones to eventually change the star people into the varying new forms that we meet in the book. Some of these individuals would end up being much more more cruel than others. This would explain such monstrosities as the colonials. Maybe the Q responsible for these forms had become displeased with their subjects, and changed them in such a way as to punish them for being unable to live up to the insane demands that were placed upon them. Or maybe the Star People had grown so fanatical that they felt they were irredeemable sinners, and they begged and pleaded with the Q to punish them. The Q, seeing just how desperately the Star People wanted this, and seeing no other way around this awful psychological problem that the Star People had developed other than outright destroying them, granted them their wish. Perhaps the Star People were threatening to wipe themselves out, and the Q, whom they worshipped, took immense pity on them, deciding that the best way was to just give them the fate they desired. This would also explain why the colonials' sentience had been retained. They wanted this. Afterwards, the Q, feeling so utterly miserable about how things had turned out and what they had had to do in order to prevent the Star People from destroying themselves, had left, being unable to face what they had done. There had probably been other ways around it, other modifications that could have been made to help the Star People, but the whole situation had become extremely messy and was horribly mismanaged. Such was the shame felt by the Q after all of this had transpired, that they simply left. So in summation, I would say that it's a distinct possibility that the Q and the Star People had coexisted for a long time before things just went horribly wrong. Or maybe it all happened a different way. I want to know what you think, dear viewer, so sound off in the comment section below. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please like, share and subscribe, and don't forget to check out the merch store. This has been Beware the Q, and I'll see you in the next video.